We are back with yet another Notion video. I know I have been on kind of a frenzy so far, but y'all seem to be enjoying it, and even though it is really difficult for my INTJ brain to just go with things, it's 2023 and we're here to try new things. It's Wesianna. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I have been publishing a couple Notion videos recently. I have my full Notion tour, a demo for beginners, some stuff about goals and reviews. I thought today would be an excellent opportunity to show you how I organize and retain information, especially when it comes to reading within my Notion system. And I'm excited to say that this video is actually sponsored by Shortform, which you'll hear more about later in the video. Now tell me if this sounds familiar. You're looking for a new book to read and find one that seems perfect. You order it immediately, it arrives the next day, and you're off reading as quickly as you can, highlighting everything that seems interesting. So many new ideas, so little time. This is going to change everything. And you slowly forget that you even read it until a friend asks you for a recommendation. You remember, ah yes, I just read the best book. They ask you for more information and you draw a blank. You've forgotten everything. I was last in school almost a decade ago, but honestly, I haven't really retained a lot, at least until recently, mostly because my strategy for taking notes and remembering everything was to just highlight whatever stood out to me and throw it into a big vault in Evernote and hoped that it would become useful one day. I even challenged myself once to read 52 books in a year, and it was the biggest waste of time because I didn't remember a single thing. But that'll change this year when I finally figured out a system for not only remembering everything I read, but also organizing the information in a way where it will resurface at the correct time. And I know all of this sounds a little vague right now, but trust me, it will all make sense once I start walking you through my process, which we are going to do now. Okay, so now we are in my field notes section. This is where I record all of my information, and I'm gonna walk you guys through my library page. This is not my original template. Someone else created it for free, so I'm gonna link it in the description box below if you wanna use it. You can see some of the books here. I'm actually gonna go ahead and use Building a Second Brain as the demo for today. I thought it'd be a good example because I haven't processed my notes on it. It's also a book about note-taking. Every time I set up a new book page, I'm gonna put the title up here. The author goes here. If there is like a separate fuller title, it goes here. The status, it can be, now reading, if I wanna read it next. When I'm finished with a book, if I have not processed the notes yet or gone over them, it'll be tagged as to process. And then once that has actually been completed and everything is filed into my Notion database, it is marked as finished. This is my learning schedule, which I explain a little bit more in my general Notion tour video. There's also genres, obviously, the date you start, date you finish. Rating and value, I will go back and enter this after. I also will go through and add any connecting notes or ideas, topics from my wiki, like content that I'm thinking of, if this could be a good reference, any quotes that make sense, sources. All of these connections get put in afterwards once I have a better idea of what the book is actually about. Now, in the actual notes section, I'll have a cover here. This cover is being used as the thumbnail. Down here are the notes that I currently have. It's not a lot because I haven't actually gone through and imported all my highlights yet. So most of my nonfiction books tend to be ebooks so that I can read them on my Kindle. And the reason for that is because I use a service called Readwise, and they just make it so much easier for me to manage all of my highlights and notes in the books. And I'll show you guys exactly why this service is so great. You can go into import and link, your Kindle, your Instapaper, Twitter, a bunch of other different stuff, and it will automatically take those highlights and your notes and import it into your Readwise account. And then if you go to export, you can actually link your Readwise account to your Notion. So all of this happens automatically anytime I read a book with a Kindle and, I put highlights in it or notes or anything. I don't have to do anything. It's all automatically added to my Notion for me. So if we go back to my field notes page, you can see under here to process, I have all of my Readwise books imported in here. They were just brought in automatically. And if you open one of them, we can see that all of the metadata is already imported, and then everything is already put in here with all the quotes and all the locations. Pretty cool. So I do have a separate tab here for transferring the books, and that's because Readwise imports it into their own Readwise database, and I like having them separate in a separate books database. So if I haven't created the book page for it yet, I will go through and just literally drag it from here into the books database. And if I do have a page for it already, so for example, Building a Second Brain, I already have that built. I'll either delete it and just move this one in if I haven't added any information yet, but since I do have notes on there already, I'll go through and just take all of this information, highlight it, and we can move this to the page that I already have set up. So all of this has automatically been added to to the bottom here. So these are just all like my raw notes now. So when it comes to organizing these notes, it can sometimes be a little bit tricky to figure out what you were thinking at the time based on the highlights alone. And if you're like me and you like borrowing from the library and you also procrastinate on organizing your notes later, then it can be a little bit harder because you no longer have that book to reference after. But I did recently find a really great solution to this, and that is where today's sponsor, Shortform, comes in. Shortform is a service best known for their comprehensive book guides. They cover over 1,000 different nonfiction books and not only include the book's ideas in a way that is easy to understand, but they also include their own analysis and own connections in a way to help you understand those ideas better. Like I mentioned earlier, I used to have such a hard time trying to organize and keep track of all the information that I would take from books, and Shortform has just made this process so much easier. You can also listen to a summary of the book after to help reinforce learning. The best part is it's not just general short book summaries like you might find in other services. Everything is contextual and connects to different ideas from other books and other sources so that you can start to think about the topic in different ways. So some of my most used categories are productivity, marketing, and career, since I have been looking for a new full-time job. Shortform is also a very active service, and they publish new books and guides every week, and they also allow their community to vote on what books get covered next. To get a free trial and an additional 20% off your annual subscription, you can use my link here, or you can click the link in the description box below. So once I have imported everything and filled in all the gaps with Shortform, I will go through and create a progressive summarization, which is something I actually stole from Building a Second Brain. And when I'm doing this, the key is to prioritize information that is actually going to be useful for you in the future so that you're not just building up an endless database of useless ideas. So as you're going through this, you're going to find that some highlights, some ideas don't really resonate with you anymore, and that's totally fine. We're just going to go through and delete them because we don't want them cluttering our minds or our Notion. So I've just opened a little split screen here so that I can reference the Shortform page as well as my notes as I'm starting to clean them up. And there's a little bit of information at the beginning. I didn't find some of the contextual information from this book to be that interesting, so I'm actually going to skip it and not add that to my collection. I wanted more of the applicable ideas. So I'm going to scroll down here and then talking about like how the system works, why you should use it. Okay, this area is talking about Parrot, and I remember that was something that I really wanted to use in my own system. I know I had a note on it here. Yeah, so they're talking about having like an inbox to capture information, management folder, to-dos. So I've actually never read Getting Things Done, even though I use a lot of the information from it, but because it's so closely connected, I think I'm going to add it to my to-do list here in books. And then later on when I do get around to reading it, I'll remember that it's connected to this book as well. Okay, so I think I'm gonna organize this into recording notes. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with this whole process, but you can kind of get an idea of how I start to summarize and draw out certain information. I got rid of some stuff I don't think I'll need later, and anything that seems to really stand out or that I want to be able to see when I'm skimming back over this information, I will either bold or highlight or both. So now you can see if we go back up to recording notes, if I were to just want to go over like a 30-second review of this book sometime in the future, I could just look over exactly what I wrote here, and I see that value's not evenly distributed, make sure it's interesting, helpful, or valuable. So I didn't have to read everything here. I could kind of just see an overview and decide if it's something that I wanted to dive in deeper, if it's relevant to whatever I'm working on, and if not, I can just put this back away, resurface it for later. And another thing I'll do here is if there's something that really stands out to me, which is usually something that is bolded and highlighted, not always all of it, but sometimes, I will go through and create a quote for it. So for example, if this was something that I wanted to probably reference in future projects or future content, I might take it and copy it and add it to my quotes database. And this way I can actually take very specific pieces of information and connect it to projects or other books or my wiki. And it's a little bit easier to kind of organize it in a modular way versus just linking directly to this book, because not everything in a book is going to be relevant to other topics. So here I would probably put it for, I think it would relate to Homework for Life, obviously Second Brain, productivity, and writing and storytelling. So I've been able to add that piece of information to other parts of my Notion. And then once I have gone through and sort of like sorted and organized all my notes, I will give a summary up top here. So the key points are just maybe what you would see like on Amazon as like a summarization, and impressions are how I felt about the book, you know, things that could be improved, what I liked. And then down here is homework, which is how I will take certain parts of this book and apply it to my own life. And I think I took this from Ali Abdaal actually, so you can check out his template as well if you want to see more of how he takes notes on books. Afterwards, I will come up here and finally add in like all the rest of the metadata so we can say what we rated it. I mean, I think this is a 4-star book. It might have been a little more of a 3-star for me because I was already familiar with a lot of the concepts in here, but for someone who has never done para or like getting things done, I think this would be really valuable. And yeah, I mean, in terms of value, actually, I would say it's probably like a 5-star for sure. And then I'll go through and add like the URL and everything to the book. Content, I mean, this relates to this video right here, so I'm gonna connect it there. And then if I have any other sources that I think relate to this, I can just put them in there as well. You know, it doesn't always have to be things that are supporting the arguments here. It could just be stuff that's even the opposite of what this author is supporting. And then once all of this is done, I can finally go up here and click finished. It'll start to feel a little overwhelming if you accumulate lots of reference information once you start reading more. So I really think the key here is to prioritize the ideas that are actually useful to you and you actually want to use in the future so that you're not just building up this endless database of useless ideas. There tend to be a lot of vanity metrics in the reading world, especially online where everyone is just constantly competing to outread each other. I think Ali Abdaal even recently said he reads 1,000 books a year, which is probably just capitalism taking its final form in a leisurely hobby. Personally, I think it's better to read 5 books a year that you thoroughly understand, digest, can apply to your own life, versus 50 books a year that you just randomly read and forgot about so that you can brag to random strangers on LinkedIn. Overall, this is a really useful system whether you are a student who is pursuing a formal education or you're like me and just trying to keep your brain from deteriorating into early onset dementia. And once again, don't forget to sign up for a free trial of short form. They truly are an indispensable tool to help you read and retain information better. And otherwise, if you want to learn more about how I am currently using Notion, you can check out these videos here.